Welcome back to Derry Public Radio. Reporting from the basement of the Derry Civic Center, this is Joshua Kahn with your news. The long walk is underway. Just minutes ago, our very own intern, Bo Wren Haley, and 99 other brave young men set out on a journey across Maine and into our hearts. We here at Derry Public Radio wish Bo Wren the best of luck on this grueling task. May your legs carry you to glory as you join the ranks of some... What? He's out. Already? Yeah. Anyway, good luck to the 99 walkers still on the road. You're listening to Derry Public Radio.
This is Derry Public Radio.
Welcome back to Derry Public Radio, a bi-weekly Stephen King Book Club podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Joshua Kahn, alongside CM Alexander.
Hello, everyone.
And Benjamin Graham.
What's up, Constant Raiders?
Today, we are tackling part 2 of The Long Walk, covering chapters 6 through chapter 10, and we have CM leading our discussion. Take it away, CM.
To recap our first episode, part 1 of The Long Walk, 16-year-old Ray Garraty and 82 other boys have walked about 75 miles at a minimum of 4 miles per hour without rest. 17 boys have gotten their tickets for some reason or another. Some have died of injuries, some have made a run for it, some have slowed down too many times, and others just gave up. We're only 6 chapters into the book, and up to this point, most of the boys' deaths have been noted, with the exception of just a few. And they're still people, not just numbers, and their deaths are described to the reader, which I feel like is this book's way of giving meaning to those deaths. But as we cover more miles, the boys begin to crack, and things start to feel hopeless and meaningless, and more walkers start to die. And more often than not only do we not get their names or how they died, we don't even get their numbers. They're just part of an ever-growing body count, or an ever-dwindling body count, depending on how you look at it. Chapter 6 opens with 8 more deaths. Only one is named Davidson. That's 25 boys who have received their tickets.
Is this like one of the higher body counts in a King book that we've read so far?
Definitely one of the higher ones. I mean, I think Carrie's like a whole town.
That's a good point.
But this is probably a pretty high one for everything we've read so far.
Well, we know it's going to be 99. The body count.
True. 99 at minimum.
Garraty is walking and semi-dozing and imagining getting his ticket, and he comes to pretty disoriented. And he's not around his group of walkers, and he has this moment of panic because he doesn't recognize anyone. I wanted to point this out because this shows us the duality of the relationship that's going on among the walkers. On one hand, you don't want to get too close to anyone because you're basically waiting for everyone around you to die. And on the other hand, they're also keeping each other going, sometimes quite literally. And the nature of the event they're participating in is otherwise so lonely and tragic that they become a source of inspiration and hope to one another. They can't escape the fact that they're out walking each other.
The friendship that specifically Garraty and McFreeze have, I think, is one of the most fascinating parts of the book. I think Stebbins has it right. Stebbins, of course, is the weird purple pants tree kid.
Oh, purple pants and blue chambray shirt. I think we failed to mention.
We really did. He is walking at the back of the pack alone. I think that's the better strategy, don't you?
Yeah, I really think it is. I can imagine it's very hard to not form bonds with people. Like, I know for me, I'm a talker. I talk to strangers all the time. It's just like, that's naturally what I would do is engage with other people. But knowing that getting close to those people would mean losing somebody you know, that's a lot. That's a lot of extra mental weight to carry on you.
I think it would be impossible for me not to form relationships with people, because if I was helping someone along, even if they weren't helping me, like that would sort of give me focus and purpose, I think. It would keep me going to try to keep other people going.
That's an interesting point, and something that I want to talk about later once we get to it. What keeps them walking.
Okay. Well,
it's a recurring thing where Garraty is like, I don't know why I'm walking. Why am I doing this? I don't know why I signed up.
Right, and we find out I'm trying to remember when it is that they could back out.
In the first chapter, he says, his mom's like, oh, you can back out. And he's like, nah, the deadline was yesterday.
Right, yeah, like, so not only are they committed to this, but they had all the time in the world to back out.
I think they had like April 15th or something.
Mm-hmm.
There was some deadline too.
Mm-hmm. There was like a first dropout date, and then there was there was the second dropout date. But the fact that 100 people, which also means that more than 100 people would have had to apply because they have to have people for when they drop out, I guess. But
yeah, they have to have backups.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I remember saying last episode that the boys have gone into this with their eyes open. They all know what's at stake and they know what they're getting into because that's kind of how they come into it. They do seem knowledgeable and aware, but they're really, like McVrees was talking before, I imagined that the first gun would go off and a little flag would come out of the end, not a bullet. They don't really know what they're getting into because they're teenagers, and to them, they can't die. They're invincible. They are the stars of their own show.
I know I was indestructible when I was 16.
Oh, I'm still immortal.
Another boy gets his ticket, and Garraty gets a warning and realizes that this time yesterday, he was asleep in the back of a truck on his way to the walk. He was sprawled out on his back. He wasn't moving. He was laying down, and I felt his yearning and his pain in that moment. Have you ever been like working out or just walking and you want to get there and you're like, oh, remember earlier when I was in bed?
Every single day. Every goddamn day. And that kept occurring to me while reading this there's a few times where people just keep saying, one of them just says, you know what I want to do? I want to just walk out into a field and just lay down on my back and stare up at the stars.
Yeah, they're all engaging in this mental self-torture.
I felt that, though, like the weighing those... I said it in the first episode that I would rather, if I was going to be the winner, I'd rather go out right away because I wouldn't want to put myself through this. So at that point, when you are so far in, you're a day in, and only 25 people out of the 100 have gone, I can imagine how sweet the idea of just laying down and letting it happen is.
I would really love a table or a chart of all the other walks, because I kept thinking, so like, not that I want a lot of these boys to die, but for our main character's sake, I'm like, okay, they need to start dying now. And 25 is so few. Mm-hmm. In that moment, because they're already exhausted and they clearly have so much further to go. I'm curious if their group, because it seems like their group is breaking all these records.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's like, man, what a unfortunate.
Yeah, the word
to be a part of the record-breaking year.
Yeah, the word comes back that they will definitely pass the Maine state line, and that's like 2 days. Like at the rate they're walking, that's gonna be another 2 days of walking, and they're all already practically zombies.
Yeah, I don't know what I would do knowing that amount of time was stretched out in front of me.
Fuck, I'm tired. Just
you have to walk for at minimum 2 more days. Nah, I'm done. And just laying down.
So that comes back to the relationship piece again. Like, are their relationships the thing that's keeping them going in those moments?
For some of them, yeah, but I mean, the fact that Stebbins is still there proves that it's not necessary. It's important to the characters it's important to, because those are the kind of people they are. I think that's the important characterization of these people. You found the characters that need other people, and you find the characters that don't need other people.
It's interesting because you said Stebbins doesn't need that, and it makes me wonder what is motivating him that we don't know about yet that is so powerful that he doesn't need that.
I am very anxious to find out. I cannot wait to finish this book.
Yeah, Garraty watches the sunrise and another boy gets his ticket. And we find out that over $2 billion gets bet on the long walk every year. What did you guys think of that?
I think it goes back to support the hypothesis I made last episode that this dystopian future no longer has things like the Super Bowl or the World Series. Like this is the sport. This is the thing. This is the entertainment for the year. I mean, I don't know how much is bet on major sporting events currently, but billions seems like a lot to go into betting on 100 boys walking.
This is the part that finally made me get that. It made me understand what this world looks like. It's so normal. And even, I think it was McVrees and some of the boys are talking about how when they were in high school, they would place bets on the walkers. So this is a part of their society that they've grown up in, thinking that this is just part of life and it's what you do. And so it makes it seem a little more plausible that any of them would even sign up for this in the first place.
I mean, if they're betting $2 billion, they're all celebrities, right? I mean, we see that with Garraty. He's main zone. There are people lined up on the side of the road screaming his name. Could that play into it?
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, for some, that might be enough. That might be the only type of attention like that they're ever going to get. It reminds me of suicide, when you're contemplating suicide because you just want that moment to end and you're not thinking about how the next moment after that might be better is never going to come because you've ended everything.
Yeah, and that's a really apt description because McFreeze says later on, this is suicide, just takes longer, which is brutal.
Very brutal.
There's one thing I want to discuss is you mentioned that this is the end of the first night. I thought this section, the night, was really scary.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
So this whole first chapter, it's night has fallen and it's dark and it is claustrophobic and you feel the loneliness close in. And Garraty is terrified of once the sun comes up. He says he looks back at the night with actual horror that he actually had to make it through that. And it's the first night. Did you guys get that feeling of this is gonna happen again?
Well, like, I do now. Now I feel really ominous about it.
Yeah.
It reminded me, we've talked before in different episodes about that, quote, Stephen King moment where, for example, in room 1408, he can make describing the way a door looks terrify you. And this, in his description of the night, that was when I was like, yeah, this feels like that Stephen King moment. As close as we're going to get to it in this book, because this is not your like Stephen King horror book.
Yeah, it's a Bachman moment.
Mm-hmm.
The sensation of walking out of the night.
Yeah.
Because it's all behind him.
In my mind, I pictured him literally I pictured it a transition like that. Like,
yeah,
right back here, it's night, and now it's day.
That's kind of how I felt that he was seeing it, is that it was almost like there was no dim light of dawn, that on one side of he crossed a threshold and in his mind, it is daylight here, and back there is the pitch black nighttime terror that I just walked through.
The boys continue to walk.
They sure do.
They can't laugh every time.
All right, come back next week for our new episode.
Okay, so they're about 80 miles now, and McVrees cracks, and Garraty makes a decision, and I want to talk about that decision because he's already got a warning.
Yeah, McVrees snaps and sets off to charge the half track, basically, and it looks like I had that moment of like, oh, this is it for McVrees, because you can't just charge these soldiers and nothing happened. And he just spits on the soldiers, and they're just standing there issuing him his warnings as he's shouting things at them and cursing them and spitting at them. And he gets his third warning, and while Garraty could have just kept going, and I think Garraty has a warning at this point. Yeah. He gets a second warning because he runs back to McVrees and like grabs him and pulls him away and pulls him forward. Like he saved his life. Mm-hmm. Hands down. McVrees would have gotten his ticket. He would not have pulled himself away. There's no way.
And McReese is not grateful, like you might imagine he would be. And he tells Garraty that there are no winners. They are all losers. In fact, the last guy, the guy to win, they take him out back and shoot him. And it's just like he has hit his bleak moment.
McVrees, as we find out a little bit later, his whole worldview is not just that this is like suicide. They are all actively committing suicide. He says, why are we all doing this? You haven't figured it out, Garraty? We all want to die. That's why.
Mm-hmm.
Why else would we be doing this? And I can't argue
That's
with
a fair
that.
point.
So yeah, he gets saved by Garraty, and he's like, what the fuck, man? Like, why would you do that? I was done. And now he's back in it.
Mm-hmm.
And
The Major's coming around again soon. And I thought this part was interesting because Stebbins has something neat to say about this arrival and how the boys are going to react to seeing the Major.
yeah, is this the first real conversation that Garraty has with Stebbins? He falls back because he is fascinated with this kid. And Stebbins just knows. Stebbins is like, check it out. There's more soldiers coming. You know what that means? It means the Major's coming, which is some really interesting insight that he has, which I guess might have something to do with the fact that his dad was in the squads, right?
Right.
Probably, yeah.
So he says, yeah, the Major's coming. And Garraty's like, yeah, well, good. Fuck that guy. And he's like, no, man, everyone's going to cheer him. Like, they don't hate the Major yet. They think they do. And in fact, when the Major does show up, literally just drives by waving and then leaves, Garraty cheers.
That's insane.
Mm-hmm.
That is insane.
He feels a shiver of pride just looking at the guy who is essentially murdering them.
Yeah, because it's so ingrained in them. And even as their feet are hurting and they're dying and they're watching others die, and they know that it's likely they'll die too, that's still so a part of them that they can't deny it.
They're probably also desperate for something to cheer for.
Yeah, something positive.
It's like, even though when he's not there, and like, because there's towards the end of where we stopped reading last time and the beginning here is when they start, like, people are telling jokes about like the Major, like banging the Major's grandma.
Yeah.
And like, they're just really stupid not jokes about that. Always the punchline is something about either like banging the Major's mom or dog or whatever the case may be. But it shows that fall from being an icon to their villain a little bit. And then this cheering section comes around and I was like, guys, where's all that hate that you guys had earlier? Like, come on, let him know about it.
All right. A few hours later, a boy named Yannick gets his ticket. And everybody's starting to get cranky at this point. I mean, like, more cranky.
That is an understatement.
That is the biggest understatement.
The boys are displeased with the situation at hand.
Oh, boy,
I mean, things are just really coming to a head. Garraty and a boy named Parker have a little spat. Oh, okay, I need your help. What is a big drugstore cowboy Saturday night tough guy leather jacket hero? That's what Garraty calls Parker.
That's
Parker.
pretty straightforward to me.
Yeah.
He's the Fonz. He's one of the T-Birds. Like,
Isn't the Fonz like a guy you like, a good guy?
if you like drugstore heroes, what the fuck does he call him?
Well, he calls him, it's like through a series of, he's kind of ranting, so it's not all in one thing, but first he calls him a big drugstore cowboy Saturday night tough guy, and then he refers to him as a leather jacket hero.
Yeah,
is he a greaser? Is he like Billy?
Yeah, he is a greaser. They're all over the place.
Yeah, well, and I wonder if that description is more not that is what he is, but that's what he wants to look like. Like, it's somebody dressing like they're a tough guy as opposed to being a tough guy.
It was just a strange string of words put together. I thought you guys would really enjoy it.
I feel like I've described things like that when I have not slept for a day and some change.
Oh, yeah, I guess maybe he's a little...
that actually starts happening a few times, that people just start speaking in like weird asides. Like, people will just like yell something that doesn't really make any sense.
Yeah, they're sleep deprived.
Yeah.
All right. Harkness gets a cramp in his foot, and we have a tense scene where it seems like he's going to get his ticket. Did you guys think that he was going to buy it at that moment? Because I was like, oh, man, he's not going to finish that book. I really felt for him. He doesn't, though, and Garraty is relieved because Harkness is part of his group. He describes it as like a magic circle, and if one of them dies, a katat. Yeah, that circle can be broken, and if part of that circle can be broken, any part of it can be broken. They're all up for grabs.
It's that last line of invincibility. Like, none of their people, even though Olsen is basically a zombie, a shambling corpse at this point, he's still hanging on. And I think everyone thought of that group that Olsen would be the first to go because he's in such a bad way. But that scene, the fact that he gets his warnings, and then he describes hearing, like, he can hear the guns raising and lowering on Harkness over and over as he's on his third warning, and he keeps getting so close. That was terrifying to me. Like, the idea, imagine like being Harkness, and if everybody else is keyed into hearing it. I'm sure he was pretty keyed in on it too.
And you don't know how many seconds away you are from those guns firing.
Right. And because you can only pick up the pace for so long, especially when you're at that end and you have a massive cramp in your foot and walking in only one shoe because you can't stop to put your other shoe back on.
Yeah. Chapter 7, we meet Scram. Let's talk about Scram.
Scram, instantly my favorite character in this middle section, which is insane. It's another one of those like king characters that comes out of nowhere, and I'm like, this fucking dude's great. He's fucking stupid.
He almost seems like a character in a different book.
Yeah,
because he's just instantly the most likable dude. He's just so affable and easygoing.
And the only one who, maybe not like mentally, because we find out he has a wife and a baby on the way, but at least physically the smartest one of the group, of all these 100 boys, because he's walked 80 miles nonstop. Like, he is prepared. He is ready. He knows that his feet, his legs, his mind can handle it.
Yeah, we find out, we start by hearing that Scram is married. Garraty is blown away that this guy is married. He's like, yep, dropped out of high school, married my sweetheart. She finished school, and she got pregnant, and we're doing it. And when I win, maybe we'll move to Maine. And Garraty,
oh God, I don't like that.
Blown away that someone would join the walk in this situation, and I agree.
For as dumb as he is, I guess as simple-minded and maybe not book smart, but maybe street smart in a way, he makes a pretty fair assessment of some of the other boys, including Garraty.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? Simple is I think the
as
right.
Simple does.
God damn it! No, his philosophy is simple. That he's the odds-on favorite in Vegas. He mentions that he knows he's the odds-on favorite, and that the reason that he knows he's going to win is because he's motivated. He knows his motivation. He knows what he's here for, and that the other people either don't know or their motives aren't enough. And that is objectively likely not true. But to him, that simple philosophy of, it boils down to I want it more. And so I'll get it.
And this might lead into what I referenced earlier, is what keeps these guys walking. And I want to know what you guys think about this, because the book seems to be setting up that the prevailing philosophy is Stebbins. Stebbins' philosophy is what keeps you walking has to be internal. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it kind of goes with, because Garraty, Scram's, kind of talking about why he thinks each of the boys are here. He's assessing their motivation, and Garraty's like, "Who do me next? Do me." And he's like, I mean, maybe he wasn't that excited, but Scram reluctantly says, "Okay," and he's like, "You don't know why you're here. You don't know what's motivating you, but right now fear is motivating you, and that's not enough. It can't be this. It has to be like this special combination of things, and it seems like none of our characters that we have this insight into understand or know what that thing is or possess it yet.
Except for maybe Olsen?
See, I think we'll talk more about Olsen.
Yeah,
but
we might get to that
he's
later.
withdrawn, and I think his withdraw is his plan. Everybody says, "Oh, I got a plan. I'm getting these 3 warnings now because I got a plan. I got this first warning right off the bat because I got a plan." I think Olsen is, I don't know if that was his intended plan, but I think that's his defense mechanism. He's shutting out the pain. He's shutting out the other people. He's shutting out taking care of himself, unfortunately, but he's just one foot in front of the other, like a zombie, like you said. So the boys are talking about death and not wanting to die, even though they're not sure why they're there or what's going to keep them from dying. And a boy up ahead has a seizure. And the soldiers give his seizing body its warnings. And then he gets his ticket.
Rules are rules, man.
I hate, on the one hand, I feel like I'd rather go that way, just give my unconscious body the warnings and then the ticket. And on the other hand, it's so sad because it's like they can't do anything about that. No amount of will or physical prowess is going to get them up when they're having a medical thing happening to them.
It's just like people earlier who get cramps. Like they didn't anticipate that sometimes this happens, and he just had a cramp in his brain. And that's all it is.
Cramp in his brain. That's is that your medical?
Oh yeah. That's my medical diagnosis. Oh, that's a good old fashioned brain cramp.
Let's talk about Gribble getting his ticket.
All right, going into this moment, I was like, I will bet anything CM tries to just gloss over Gribble and does not want to talk about it.
No, I specifically have a note on it because it makes me so sick. No, okay, let's describe what he does
What
to
happens?
his ticket.
The boiled down version of what happens is that Gribble, there's spectators, and there's a female kind of splayed out, like wanting him to come over. So he runs over, takes all 3 of his warnings to like make out with a girl who is 100% wanting to bone.
Yeah.
Super like she's got like her legs like locked around him. They're dry humping. Yeah. And like when he goes to pull away, she almost like doesn't let go. And he like breaks free and runs back. And he's like super proud of himself. And then he gets a cramp in his crotch. And
that right there is a no, I can't do it.
And it just drops to his knees and catches a bullet, like pretty much right afterwards. Like,
so the reason that this upset me,
go on.
It's a combination of the girl's behavior, because they just wanted a thrill, and what she did basically led to his death. And she doesn't care about that.
She's a real Barkovich.
Yeah, she got her thrill. She got to hump a walker, and she can tell that story for weeks or months probably, and
to her grandkids.
Be really popular. Yeah, to her grandkids. But this boy, all these boys, they're so desperate for even just a quick moment of physical comfort. They have all been reduced to their base survival instincts: food, water, reproduction. So he sees her ready and willing, and it's like he cannot help himself. And even Garraty, in thinking about this moment, this is a part that really got me.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I forgot about this until just now.
Garraty is reimagining her thighs like quivering when Gribble is grinding up against her. And he just watched Gribble like get his head blown off. And he has an orgasm while walking. Just the thought of that physical contact.
The note I made, I did not put any more detail in it. I just wrote about Gribble, and then I wrote, "Oh man," and I knew immediately that "oh man" was that moment.
I don't even know if I have anything to say about that.
We don't
It's
have to
just
talk about it.
Insane that there's a part of this book where a guy dies with a boner, and then our main character creams his jeans about it. Is crazy.
And we can laugh about it, and it's awkward and it's disturbing, but it's also just, like I said, I mean, they're all pure instinct and nothing else.
Yeah, well, it's Garraty has turned Jan into something bigger than she is.
She's a totem at this point.
Yes. And so part of that is that projection is thinking about that girl and then bringing that into his own life, like how much he would want to have that moment with Jan and might have made the same decision. And I feel like biologically it's spot on. Nailed it. Like it's putting his attention somewhere else and
into his pants.
Well,
into his pants.
I mean, I think of it this way: your body's dying. Basically, they're all in the process of dying, and the body's just making you do those. Okay, we got to reproduce. We got to eat. We got to drink.
Yep.
All those things. All right.
Yeah.
So the boys keep walking. Harkness gets his ticket, and the circle is broken, and Scram starts to get a cold, and Olsen starts begging the soldiers to let him rest. 6 more miles, and they're going to make 100 miles. The largest group of walkers to make 100 miles is 63 walkers, and that's less than our group right now. So we have 69, so they're on their way to set another record.
Hooray.
Olsen begging those soldiers. Ooh. Understandable, but God, that's embarrassing for who that character started out as. Like, that is a very big, like, how the mighty have fallen character moment, because he started this so confident and kind of larger than life, and to see him reduced to begging just was rough.
Olsen started out as this supremely confident character, and then he became what we see before him. The same chapter that we are introduced to Scram, the extremely confident character who thinks he's going to win, who's positive of his ability to win. And already Scram has the cold. I am thinking ahead and imagining Scram being reduced to what Olsen is now.
Oh, I don't like that thought, because I like Scram.
Yeah.
It's what they all will become. I mean, if you walk long enough, you either die or how deep can you go?
Something is going to bring them down. Let's talk about what brings down Percy.
His hubris. Yeah. I was waiting for someone to do it. Percy, they all notice that Percy is kind of eyeballing the trees in the distance. And they can tell that he looks like he's going to make a break for it. And first of all, if the other walkers can tell that you're looking like you're going to make a break for it, I'm pretty sure the trained soldiers that's job is to watch you have noticed, but they don't appear to be keeping an eye on him. Even though, as a reader, I don't know how you guys felt, I knew he wasn't fooling anybody.
Right.
There's no way.
Yeah, especially since everyone is like, hey, look. Hey, Percy's going to run.
Yeah. And boy, howdy, does he go. He takes off, and they shoot him just one shot just as he reaches the edge of the wood. Bam, down.
Yeah. And he doesn't get warnings because that's breaking the rules.
Right.
He ran.
I loved this segment. It is just one of those brilliant pieces of writing that are throughout King's work. The way it's described, just as he steps over the line into the woods, he makes it one step and he is shot. And Garraty, the time slows down, and there's this 3-second window where Garraty sees this perfect tableau of Percy standing stock still, grabbing his chest as blood seeps through his fingers, juxtaposed with the soldiers standing on the half track, all angular and like statuesque. And I just thought that was a really amazing moment that was almost beautiful.
Yeah, I felt that too. He describes a boy's death and it makes you feel something beautiful in it.
Yeah.
Something that's not, that's just harsh and sad.
And the first thing I thought of, though, was about Percy's mom.
Oh, yeah, because she's been coming through.
She's shown up like 3 or 4 times and yelling at him every time. And I mean, I knew he was going to go sooner or later. And my only hope was that he didn't go in front of her. Yeah. Like, that was like where my head thought it was going to go. Because King's a jerk sometimes.
That would have been a cheap shot.
Yeah, that would have been a real cheap shot. That was, the first thing that clicked. Because also, I mean, with this character, the one thing that we knew about him was his mom. So yeah, that was the first thing that popped into my head. And I was like, that's not going to be good.
Yeah. And it's very sad later on in the story when
she comes looking for him.
She comes looking for him and is not there.
God.
The boys continue to walk. And they come across a truck driver who's pretty upset because their walk has interfered with his route. And he is stopped on the side of the road waiting for them to pass. And I only mention that because this is where we get a little more insight into Garraty's father.
That was so stupid, though.
I felt their rage when he flips him off. And they're like, why did he have to do that? I was like, yeah, man.
Yeah, can we all get a warning for going and fucking up that driver? Because Garraty then mentions that the route, everybody knows the route. The route's been marked for a long time. They knew what date all of this stuff would close down. If you're a truck driver and you drive a truck for a living, you should know better. Like, this is on you for getting stuck. This isn't our fault for walking at the pace we have to walk and being here at this time. You're the fuck up, dude. And it segues into Garraty talking about that his dad was a truck driver, and that's one of the reasons that he knows that this guy should have known better. But
he's probably trying to make some sort of deadline, and this was the shortest route.
Right.
Yeah. And he also implies that his dad got squatted because he was politically outspoken, which I think we kind of talked about before, but we get a little more confirmation of that. We also find out that Baker was in a gang, a super racist gang, and he's ashamed of his past. And maybe that's why he's here. Maybe he's punishing himself.
So, leading up to this, Garraty is, we find out a little more about his dad being politically outspoken, and we learn a little more about the squads and the government as a whole. They're talking about how people get squatted, and I think there's an argument where one guy is like, oh, only an idiot gets squatted because they talk about they talk about their political leanings out loud and they deserve to be disappeared. And like, it's this horrible, like, Jesus Christ, how terrifying to live in this dystopian dictatorship. And then this character, which Baker is like, yeah, back in my old life, I was part of the Klan, basically. And we burned a cross on a black guy's yard. And I believe someone says, wow, you were a part of a hate group. That's a squattable offense. So the only thing we know about this horrible dictatorship is they perform this horrible death march, and they're anti-racist.
Wait,
No.
is
Like,
it because
what?
they were part of a hate group or because they were part of a gang and they didn't want people banding together in a gang?
The only violence allowed is government regulated
Right.
violence.
So no, they
So-
don't want people banding together for any purpose.
I guess it just
still not
bugged
awesome.
me that I'm like,
I thought they were
okay, that does make
coming
sense.
down on gangs because they don't want people united.
Yeah, no organized groups of
Yeah.
people.
They probabprobably don't care
That
if they're
just,
racist.
it's problematic that they're like, oh well, the one group that was uniting was racists. Can we have like you couldn't have had a character that was like, yeah, I was a part of a revolutionary group that was fighting back against the government, or
Well,
No, those people would have been killed immediately.
that's Garrity's dad. He was squatted.
Yeah.
yeah, I guess.
As Baker was talking about this, that's what came to my mind. His shame of his past. And he had said he felt really bad about burning the cross. And that's when he got out of the gang. So I'd kind of wondered, okay, maybe this is his purpose. This is what's motivating him.
Some level of atonement, like putting himself through this.
Well, still, fuck that guy.
Another boy gets his ticket, and there are more spectators, and it's the whole process just now is beginning to disgust Garraty. And he and McReese have a conversation about how the spectators are there to see walkers die, and about how all the walkers are dumb for being there and dumb for thinking they know why they're there, and that they thought they could make it to the end. And Stubbins interjects and tells them, that's when he says, "You're all here because you want to die. Why else would you be here?"
Not wrong. I mean, it's a fair argument. They know going into it, that's how it ends.
So now we're at chapter 8, and 2 more boys get their tickets. That's 36 total, and we're at 99 miles. McReese, this is interesting. He drops his empty, their rations are like
Tubes.
yeah, concentrate, chicken concentrate,
Ugh.
tuna concentrate,
Spaceman
bacon.
food.
Anybody else? Did you guys think
Well-
like I'd be out immediately because I couldn't eat a tube
You know
of
me
meat
and
paste?
food, so yes.
Ugh.
So he drops his empty chicken concentrate tube, and the spectators scramble for it, and it becomes a souvenir. Even when they have to go to the bathroom, they have to poop, that becomes a souvenir. And Garraty asks McReese if he could do it all over again, would he participate in the walk? And
Dumbest question ever.
yeah, Pete has a very reasonable, insane response. Essentially, hell no.
Yeah, he's like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, what the hell? No.
The boys continue to walk, and something happens to Garraty when they come up on another crowd.
He comes in his pants again.
Kind of, in a way. Yeah, Collie Parker, like everybody's waving and being friendly, and he's coming up on Collie Parker, who's waving and smiling, but he's saying all these horrible insults under his breath, and it strikes Garraty, and he goes into a laughing fit. He starts to have hysterics.
This is how I
And-
die.
Yeah.
This is how I die on the walk. Laughing so hard I can't walk.
And if he wasn't our main character, this is when I would have thought for sure that he was going to get his ticket.
Yeah, he gets a warning because he starts laughing and like doubles over, and he's like trying to pull himself together, but it's just too funny, and he gets another warning. And so I think, was that his second or his third? Because I think he walked
He gets
off
3
one.
warnings.
Yeah,
Mhm.
he gets his third warning, and McReese has to like grab him and pull him along, kind of like how Garraty helped him earlier, and slaps him out of it. Tells him to pull his shit together, because if he doesn't, he is done. And McReese also gets a warning for stopping or for slowing down enough to help pull him along. And Garraty like starts to catch his breath a little bit, like he's out of the hysterics, but then he like starts seeing spots, and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna faint," and then like this is it. This is how I go, and then here's a gunshot, and pulls his focus, and is like, "It wasn't me." All right.
Yeah. There's that split second of, oh fuck, am I dead right now?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a boy named Morgan who got his ticket instead of Garraty. Garraty and Stebbins talk, and we learn that once they hit Augusta, there's continuous TV coverage of the walk. Garrity's walking with 3 warnings, and it doesn't scare him the way that he expected it would. Despite watching so many others die, there's a big part of him that still at this point doesn't believe that he can die. He's still the star of the Ray Garraty show. Garraty and McFreeze start to talk about what McFreeze did when a redheaded boy starts to scream. And he starts screaming, "Don't hurt me." He starts screaming for his mom. He starts screaming that his feet hurt as the half-track runs over his legs.
God, that was brutal.
Yeah, and they still give him his... he doesn't have legs. He can't get up to walk at this point. They're crushed. They still give him his final warning. Those are the rules. And then he gets his ticket.
The robotic nature of the soldiers makes them really terrifying villains, because they're almost not even villains. They're just a force of nature, basically. They
can't be reasoned with or pleaded with.
Yeah, they are not human entirely. They are just death.
This is their job, and they are going to do it. And nothing you say or do is going to change anything. It's the terrifying solidity of the rules. I guess that there's just no wiggle room. There's no room for interpretation in any way. These are cut and dry rules of life and death. Mm-hmm. And nothing you do will change it, even getting your legs run over by a half-track.
So here we find out how McFreeze got his scar. And if there's any problem I have in the book, it is with this story.
Yup. Because I believe last episode I said that McFreeze was my favorite character.
Not anymore.
Holy God, not after this.
Yeah, we basically find out that he and his girlfriend moved to the city to get jobs, and she's making more money than him. She's, a pretty girl, kind of put in this more comfortable position and makes good money, and he's doing this hard job, and he's not really good at this manual labor, and all the other guys are getting on him because he's slowing up the production line, and this is just causing problems in their relationship. And he basically tries to rape her one night, and she cuts his face.
I would argue, that it wasn't basically trying. He
definitely tried to rape her. He
tries to rape this girl, and he tells this story and I can't fault the writing, because it's told in a way that a piece of shit would tell this story.
Yeah, like it.
This
he never
isn't
takes
my
blame.
fault.
Yeah, he fully excuses his actions.
This is, she made me feel like a loser.
Well,
she made me feel like a failure. So,
and asking him, how could he do this to her? How could he hurt her for trying to rape her?
Yeah,
when he's bleeding, it's like she should have cut his head off.
Yeah, and he after he yells at her and tells her, "I'm moving back home, you come with me." And she's like, "No, like, you're being a huge asshole. I'm not doing that." He then says, I tried to take her to bed, and so she cut my face open with a letter opener. And it's said in such a way of like, can you believe that? And it's like,
the gall of some people.
Hold on. You did not try to take her to bed. People do not cut open other people's faces for trying to take someone to bed.
Yeah.
You don't understand what things are. Like, you fucking rapist piece of shit.
And then he justifies it by saying, she's mental, man. Always has been. Something, she gets it from her mother. She's always obsessed with money. No.
Yeah.
All right. So that was a rough one.
So Stebbins is my favorite character in the book.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Well,
Ben.
now,
Fuck.
this could just be wild speculation for me, but do you think that part of that story of giving him something so terrible to make us like him less, because everybody's got to die? Like if there's, I don't know, like putting some massive character detail that makes us not feel so bad when he dies.
I thought of it in a crueler way, more
Yeah.
of like oh, you made me really like this character, and as soon as I let my guard down, you taught me that lesson of you don't really know people.
That's very true.
Yeah, I feel like King's writing as Bachman is just... I don't think it was that calculated. I think it's just... I've described Bachman books as mean books before.
Yeah.
There are
It's
no
just-
good guys.
They're way bleaker. And I think it was just a matter of like, hey, this guy's a piece of shit because everyone's kind of a piece
Yeah.
of shit.
This is who this guy's been all along. You just didn't see that.
Yeah.
The boys continue to walk. They've gone 115 miles, and in 90 minutes, no one has died. Then around noon, 5 boys get their tickets.
Oof.
2 of sunstroke, 1 of seizures, the other of cramps, and another for reasons that we didn't even get.
I'm sorry, brain cramps? I believe you meant to say.
Or crotch cramps.
Or crotch cramps.
Sounds so terrible. Have either of you guys ever had sunstroke? It's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
fun.
No.
It's not something you can just like, oh, I'm going to power through this.
Yeah, no. You get heat stroke, you're down.
Yeah. So Olsen isn't, and he's already not been looking good, but it's getting worse. And a boy in a green vest gets his ticket. So we keep getting these images of Olsen, and then a different boy gets his ticket. I just thought that was interesting. Garraty sees another ghost. This one Italian, holding watermelon.
What are you talking
It's not a
about?
ghost! It's a real person, Sam! How many times have I told you not everyone's a ghost?
Oh.
This is a fun scene because this Italian vendor shows up and he thinks he's going to give the boys watermelon. And as we know by this point, the spectators cannot give anything to the walkers. And when he finds out that he can't give them watermelon, all hell breaks loose. And I was like, yeah, you go, Italian ghost.
That was pretty awesome. And like all the kids, all the walkers, like running up and like grabbing what they can get, while the soldiers drag this dude away.
Yeah, and he makes a run for them. He leaps, and the soldiers, I imagine, like in my head, I see this sort of cartoonish or really crazy action movie scene
Yeah,
where
the Benny
they
Hill
leap
song
for
is...
him and they grab his ankles and he comes crashing to the ground, and all the watermelon he had in his arms just goes out to the
Yeah.
boys, flies out of his arms, and they
Yakety Sax
each
starts playing.
but they each get a piece of watermelon, except Stebbins.
It's because he doesn't
Need
it.
any. Yeah. All right. The boys have walked 120 miles, and it's
Jesus.
hot that afternoon, but the rain is coming and it's going to be a huge storm. Unfortunately for them, this is just another thing that kind of like got me. The wind is not at their back. It is blowing into them. And imagine how much easier it would be to walk if you had that wind just kind of pushing you along. 2 more boys get their tickets, and then the temperature drops, and the hail comes, and the rain comes, and the rain doesn't stop for the rest of the day. 8 p.m. comes, and they're
Yeah.
still walking in that weather.
It's crazy that they do this time lapse. Like it's been going, like the time has been passing pretty steadily, and then it starts raining, and that's all we hear about for the rest of the day.
Yeah, we
It-
jump forward to the night.
It really like hammers home this idea of like it's raining and it's so terrible that it blots out everything else
Mhm.
because they're just wet and miserable. And it's not even like cooled down. You can just imagine it being that like humid,
Well,
awful,
and it's-
sticky.
No, it's
feeling.
cold though. It's spring, and so there's still that. It can be hot in the day, and then something changes, and all of a sudden it's like 40 degrees and you're freezing.
Yeah.
2 more boys get their tickets, and they get their tickets because they just faint. That's all that happens. And later, a boy named Fenham is the 50th walker to get his ticket. Everybody thought it was going to be Olson, but it was this boy Fenham. So there are 50 left. They've walked over 120 miles, and they're getting closer to parts of Maine that Garraty is familiar with. And Stebbins tells him that he thinks that that's his edge because this is his land. Garraty notices, I thought this was cool, that Stebbins is wearing moccasins. He brought moccasins with him.
This is something, at some point, Stebbins has changed from his tennis shoes, which are now tucked into his pants, into moccasins. How the fuck do you change your shoes while walking 4 miles an hour?
You get a warning, man. You got 30 seconds.
He doesn't get a warning, though, because isn't there some part later in the book where he gets another warning and it's only his second warning at all for the whole walk?
I
guess I don't know.
So, but yeah, it's there are several things in this book that I'm like, no, you can't do that either while walking or within 30 seconds. The multiple times people shit. Like, I'm sorry. I have never once in my life shit in less than a minute. Impossible. Physically impossible.
But Ben, they're eating tubes of concentrated food.
Okay, good point.
So
Yeah, man, you should try to eat some tubes.
to really help you out in the
can't
bathroom.
make me.
But maybe that's part of why they get that food in that form.
To give them quicker shits?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess.
Sure.
Otherwise, the walk would be over in like 5 hours. All right, so we're coming to the end here. They come up on a hill, and Garraty thinks that this hill is going to be where he gets his ticket because his legs are such that he feels like they're going to just collapse under him. And then he hears people chanting his name. Old Town High School has come to cheer him on. He doesn't get a ticket, but I would argue he, maybe with the help of Stebbins intentionally perhaps, Garraty helps Olson get his.
Oh,
That
what?
Oh, I loved that.
And the worst death of the book.
Man, I thought that was a real calculated thing by Stebbins. Maybe I'm reading too
I
much
thought it
into
was
that
too.
character. Like that
I
he's
didn't
just
even
like
think of that.
because he's just like talking to Garraty and he's like, yeah, Olson's got a plan, man. He's doing it. He could win this, basically. He's like putting it in Garrity's head that like he's got the secret and he's never gonna stop. So if you find out what that secret is, I mean, you can probably win this, and you just got to go find out what he's doing. And Garraty like bothers him so much, basically, like is trying to like get him to come
He
forward.
breaks him out of that state that he's put himself into, that kind of protection against the walk and the world and what's happening. And then what I feel happened is that reality came crashing back in on Olson. The pain, all the despair, all the hopelessness.
Pulled him out of the safe place he was in.
Mm-hmm.
And then all the hell he's been through came rushing out.
See, that's interesting because I think Stebbins was being sincere.
Really?
Yes. This is the part where I've made several allusions to how deep are you? Because that is what will determine who wins, who can go the deepest and keep going. And Olson is way deep in there.
You see, my thought was that Stebbins was a little afraid of Olson because he was running on empty for so long. And that a part of Stebbins was like, I'm going to have to outwalk this guy who is so deep and in autopilot. I don't know that he'll stop. And so he got Garraty to fix that problem.
No, I did not think that at all.
No,
what's going to happen?
I fall more. Yeah, we could take bets. I'm willing to throw down. No, I fall more into kind of what Josh said, and I want to feel the way about it that you do, Ben, because I think that's a more interesting story and it's more beautiful and heartfelt. But thinking about how Stebbins, he's had this sort of cynical attitude, or maybe that's not the right way to put it, but what we've gotten of him so far, his personality, that fit right in with me.
So, yeah, Olsen's death.
That's a horrible scene.
And with it coming, we've seen this coming for so long. And when it comes, you don't, not like this. Not like this.
This blew my mind. So Olsen is now just back, and he's fully back in the world. He's outside of himself. He's back in the world, and he loses his mind. He runs over to the half track and starts climbing in, and the soldiers are like going to like rifle butt him to knock him out of the half track, and he starts grabbing the guns out of the soldiers' hands and just throwing them and trying to pull soldiers out of the half track. Like, he is out for blood, and the soldiers shoot him twice, knocking him off the half track, and he lands on his back. Then he gets up. They shoot him again. He falls flat. He gets up again and starts walking, holding his intestines inside him. You can see...
Not very successful.
Not very successfully. They are slipping through his stomach as he's trying to walk, but he will not stop walking. They shoot him again, and he falls to the ground, and he continues to get back up and starts walking again. And he gets shot again, and he finally goes down, and Garraty runs to him and is just holding his head, and he gets a warning for stopping, and McVrees runs back and grabs him, and McVrees gets another warning and pulls him away because you can't help Olsen. But that sight was so horrific, Garraty couldn't just walk away from that.
He gets up one more time. Olsen does. And he raises his hands to the sky and he shouts, "I did it wrong."
For those to be his dying words, that made perfect sense to Olsen.
Oh, yeah. Well, he's when you said he lost his mind, I think that's very literal.
It did make me want to know what his plan was, if he executed his plan wrong. Like, that's...
I think he did, because he died.
Yeah, that is very true.
Garraty and McVrees talk about how trivial it all is. And that brings us to the end of part 2. Well, our part 2 of The Long Walk.
Well, that's it for this episode of Derry Public Radio. As always, thank you for listening. Join us for our next episode for part 3 as we cover the rest of The Long Walk. For Benjamin Graham and C.M. Alexander, I'm Joshua Kahn, reminding you that they're animals, all right. But why are you so goddamn sure that makes us human beings?
Hey everyone, Sam Alexander here. Thanks for listening to The Long Walk Part 2. There's an awesome video someone made of The Long Walk on YouTube. The creator is Richard Boylan, and we'll share it on our Facebook so you can check it out. I'm going to keep it short and sweet today. Please rate and review us on iTunes. Follow us on Facebook or Instagram at Derry Public Radio, or Twitter at Derry Public. You can also email us at derrypublicradio@gmail.com. That's all for now, listeners. Goodbye.